How's it going, guys? And here is a review of Machine Gun Kelly's new album, Mainstream Sellout. Now, this might be a surprising review for many people. If you haven't known, this particular artist has undergone a genre change in recent years. Now, I was never really a fan of the Machine Gun Kellys. I'm not a big rap fan. I do like rap. I mean, it would be silly to say that I don't, considering that one of my favorite bands of all time is Limp Bizkit, and Linkin Park is also up there as well. And I do particularly like a lot of songs in some albums from Eminem, even though recent Eminem has not been my cup of tea. I did really enjoy the 2001 Dr. Dre album. There's a lot of albums we could go through, and of course, my favorite rapper of all time, DMX, which is kind of how I was sort of exposed to Machine Gun Kelly. Let me explain. So, first time I ever heard any songs from this guy was WrestleMania 28. They used one of his songs off of his first album, the song Invincible. And I thought it was a pretty good song. I never really bothered to look into his catalog. Recently, I have gone back and listened to some of his albums. Like I listened to Diablo, which I enjoyed for the most part. But I don't think I enjoy him as much as the current genre of music that he's in, which is pop punk. And he hasn't completely left the hip hop style on the floor, and we'll get to that in a moment when we just dissect this album. So next time I heard Machine Gun Kelly is when I listened to DMX's album, which was also released in 2012, and that was called Undisputed. This was the last official album that he released when he was still alive, and he did a song, I Don't Dance, with Machine Gun Kelly, and this actually was my favorite song on the album. And his part came in, and he sounded right at home with DMX, and I was like, oh, this is a pretty good song. I don't know if anyone's listened to it. I don't think it's a really particularly popular album. Unfortunately, DMX kind of didn't have the same mainstream appeal that he did, in the early 2000s and in the late 90s. At least that's how it looked to me anyway. I never really looked at his album sales, but that's besides the point. So years and years later now, I mean, we're going like 10 years into the future now. A few weeks ago, WWE 2K22 was released, and who's picking out the soundtrack? Who did they assign to be responsible for the soundtrack? Well, none other than Machine Gun Kelly, MGK himself. And I didn't really think too much of this when I saw it. As a matter of fact, when he was in the trailer, I didn't even recognize the guy. I mean, honestly, I never really looked for too much of his content or videos or interviews or concert footage. So like, I'm not always frequently looking at this guy. So I didn't manage to pick him out when he appeared in the trailer for the game. But I'm listening to the soundtrack as it's playing, when I finally got the game, and I'm constantly hearing like three songs that I don't recognize, because they have Motorhead on there. They also have, and I didn't know Machine Gun Kelly was picking out the songs. Like, they have them in there. You're just supposed to know this. If you didn't like go and research it, I think I had read this and I simply forgot. Because like the soundtrack to the game, when you're on the main menus, it's kind of like, yeah, you listen to it, but it's not always the biggest defining factor for you. So this wasn't really something that I was really looking for information on. So yeah, I'm hearing Wu-Tang Clan, and I noticed like it seems to be a pretty good selection of a different assortment of genres. And I kind of figured, like, is this like the wrestlers again picking these these songs, because that's what they did in 2K19, and I learned like people like The Miz have a pretty good taste in music, picking Bullet for My Valentine and such. So I was like, and Triple H picked Metallica, Spit Out the Bone and all that. So I was like, okay, so maybe that's the same case here. And I go and I'm listening to like two particular songs, and I'm like, are these Blink 182 songs? And I'm like, no, because I'm pretty familiar with Blink's catalog. I'm a big fan of theirs, and I'm like, there's something a little different about it, but it seems to be in the same style. So, I go and I check, and I'm looking at the albums that are in, because for some reason, for a few days playing this game, I didn't get the idea to do this. So I went and I checked on who is this? And I see Machine Gun Kelly, and I'm like, what? I'm like, isn't this guy a rapper? I mean, last I heard him, he was rapping, and here he is on the front of the album with a guitar. And first of all, the first thing that comes to my mind is Lil Wayne Rebirth, because he did this, and what was a pretty, I thought it was a pretty decent album when he put that out. I'm not a Lil Wayne hater. I mean, quite frankly, I enjoy when he collaborates with other people such as Limp Bizkit, and he's done some good work. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of lie to themselves, and this is the thing, I'm done being a music snob. I stopped doing that years ago, and you could tell if you go back and you watch my video, Metalhead Suck, and I've talked about this video on a number of occasions prior to that video, because it kind of marked the reawakening of me and music, and that just because metal may be my genre, I still do like punk, and I said some of my favorite bands of all time, the Gorillaz, the Offspring. These are all bands that are not metal. They're nowhere near metal. They're not metal bands, and I like different styles of music. I can't just constantly listen to traditional metal, and you have all the different subgenres, and people start warring at each other. So, I knew right away there was a lot of people that disliked Machine Gun Kelly. So I'm looking at this album, I'm looking at these songs, and I'm like, wow, this guy's really good. The vocals are really good. The guitar riffs are catchy. The melodies are awesome. I mean, these are fucking really good melodies, and this is a review of Mainstream Sellout, but I think we have to kind of preface it by talking about Tickets to My Downfall, and the songs that he picked on here. Concert for Aliens, and the other song that he picked on there. What the hell is it called? I'm gonna have to look it up for you guys. And by the way, the other song that he picked is Body Bag, and that song is actually on the deluxe, the sold out deluxe version, which is kind of odd. He thinks that highly of the song, and it wasn't even on the standard issue of it. But they're two really good songs. Concert for Aliens is a really just amazing. You're gonna listen to that song, I swear to God, I'm telling you now, but you would think it was a Blink 182 song if you're going into it blind. And it's really well done. And as I'm researching this a little bit further, I'm finding out, well, what do you know who produced the album? Travis Barker. Who's that, you ask? The drummer for fucking Blink 182. So, these guys are a powerful team. So, now we jump ahead and we take a look at the new album that's out now. This is Mainstream Sellout. I mean, this is a self-aware album. A lot of people hate on this guy. There was a big, war between him and Eminem, and I was looking at the interviews. Machine Gun Kelly said this is the reason why he got out of hip hop and rap, and that's the thing what's very unappealing to me as well about rap as a genre in general, just the hip hop scene. There's not a knock at the music at all, because I said, there's some very talented people, and I do enjoy it as a genre. Even though if it isn't my particular preferred genre, there's a lot of others that as I just said, that I would put ahead of it. But there's always this thing of who's better, and it's it's never just about who's better in music, and the beef. That's what's so unattractive to me about it. I'd always hear about this in high school and everything, rappers having beefs with each other, 50 Cent having beef, this one has beef. It just sounded really stupid, especially because you're in high school and you're hearing about like fucking adults fighting, and these are people that have like millions of dollars. Like, what is there to fight about? It's artificial, it's put on. Who knows? Half of it might even be staged. Who knows? Who even cares? But many people do. So it was a good thing that, you know, MGK decided to get out of this, and I feel like he's become a better artist because of it, because I think this is kind of like his true calling. And, you know, looking at MGK, no, it has nothing really to do with the guy being white and all that, but I feel like he just looks better in the pop punk genre. And, you know, he's shown like the guy is a competent guitar player. He's more than a competent vocalist. I mean, there's some really good vocals on his new album, Mainstream Sellout. So let's talk a little bit about this album. And I'm kind of hoping that there is like a deluxe version of this as well. So the album clocks in at a pretty decent time of 40 minutes and 25 seconds. You know, that's how Spotify puts it out. Now, overall, I don't think that the album kicks off with the same sort of ferocity as the previous album, Ticket to My Downfall, Born with Horns. You know, we kind of get the title track on Tickets, and I think it hits a little bit better. And then, you know, you go into Kiss the Bottle. Born with Horns, God Save Me. You know, MGK did state that this is supposed to be a little bit of a darker album, so I can kind of see where he's coming from. Some of these singles we already heard previously. And I've talked about this in the past, like about like spoilers. We talked about this for the new Korn album that came out recently. I'm not like really the biggest fan of this. Sometimes I like to go in fresh, but you give me a new song and a lot of times I'm gonna have to jump on and listen to it. But you know, I think the album's laid out really nice. You know, there's a lot of variety to it. So maybe from Bring Me the Horizon, which is like a band that like I have very mixed feelings about. And you know, we've got one of their songs on WWE 2K22, and you know, here he's doing a song with the with Bring Me the Horizon, and you know, I think it's a pretty damn good song. I mean, like I said, sometimes I like people better in collaborations. I don't know. I've listened to their albums, and you know, and I listened to the 2015 album for Bring Me the Horizon, which is like one of their big signature albums, and I don't know, it just wasn't hitting on all cylinders. Maybe it's one of those things where I have to listen to it multiple times. Drug Dealer with Lil Wayne, this is like what I said like about collaborations. This is a really catchy song. This is kind of like, man, you know, so far, like, you know, for the first 4 songs, this is the best song for me. Then we get into Mainstream Sellout, which, you know, I'm gonna say right here, this is my favorite song on the fucking album. And I kind of waited to talk about this a little bit, but yeah, you know, MGK has a lot of haters out there. And the fact that this is Mainstream Sellout, you look at the cover for this album, and you know, you have to say without a doubt that he's self-aware. And this song is written just like Limp Bizkit did on their album Limp Bizkit Sucks. And I think the guy got the idea from Limp Bizkit, because, you know, it really worked for Limp Bizkit because they have so many haters. You know, I'm not sure. You know, I feel like MGK is a little bit more in the mainstream than Limp Bizkit has because of due to many years of like not releasing, you know, an album and like really putting themselves out there in the mainstream, like Limp Bizkit is like sort of trying to do right now again for the first time in like over a decade, really. You know, I think MGK's kind of got the leg up there, so this gimmick kind of hits a little bit harder, and I like that about it. You know, he knows that, you know, a lot of people out there say that he sucks, and you know, you could try to ignore all those haters and just pretend like, you know, nothing's happening, because they say, you know, sometimes if you pay attention to the trolls, you know, you actually give them the attention that they're looking for, that's even worse. But here, you know, when there's a playful side to it, and it's like, to me, I said, this is a really fun, catchy song on the album, and I do believe it's my favorite. I also really do like Emo Girl, and I did actually listen to the latest album from Willow, who is featured on this track, and this is like another really fun sort of like anthem, really traditional pop punky kind of song, and it's really good, and kind of like in the spirit of the first album of just having a lot of fun. 5150 is another really fun song. World War IV, which is a follow-up to another song that's on Tickets, and A, which was featuring Lil Wayne. It's another feature. Lil Wayne getting 2 features here on this album. Not as good as his first feature on the album, but this is it's a fun. This is definitely a more hip hop style song, and you know, we didn't really get so much of this style on Tickets, but you kind of see it in a few different places on a few different tracks. Like Die in California is another one that has that hip hop vibe to it, but not so much as in the vein of his previous hip hop albums. And then we kind of, you know, bring things in, you know, with Sid and Nancy and Twin Flames, which kind of what they did on Tickets, like, you know, just kind of the outro track to this song, just a nice, you know, slower paced song that just kind of brings everything home. So I'm a really big fan of this. This is a good sequel, a good follow-up to Tickets. I'm really loving MGK's music big time, and you know, I think that this transition is probably one of the most seamless I've ever seen. I mean, really, you know, you heard a little bit of this on Diablo, but man, they really kicked it up a notch on Tickets to My Downfall, and then came in here with Mainstream Sellout, and they're really just kind of hitting it out of the park with a lot of, you know, different experimental tracks and just, you know, a general pop punk vibe to it. I'm a big fan, and I really owe it to 2K22 for featuring his music here and giving him free reign on the soundtrack pretty much. And I also listened to Kenny Hoopla, which is another artist that he featured on this soundtrack, and I thought his latest album that he released was really good as well. I mean, you really do have this like pop punk resurgence going on, and it doesn't really feel so much like Blink 182 is a part of it, but Travis Barker is helping produce these different artists, such as I mentioned, Kenny Hoopla, which is, you know, also very much inspired from Blink, and I think that's the Travis Barker inspiration there. He's probably showing them how to write songs in the similar vein, and you know, but you know, you have to be an artist capable of putting out that music, even though if it sounds similar, to even be able to replicate that sound does take talent, and they're really starting to come into their own. Machine Gun Kelly definitely, I mean, he takes the Blink sound, but he morphs it and makes it into his own style, and I think he really has adapted. It's really surprising just how well he's adapted to a new genre. How many different artists can you say have made that seamless transition and maintain their popularity? Now, of course, he probably sacrificed many fans along the way, but as an artist, you do have artistic liberty to do as you please, and I said I've always supported that. You know, always many different fans of different bands and artists have always ragged on different artists for doing these different experimentations. I've talked about different artists. I said In Flames, Suicide Silence. There's so many different artists that have come up with different styles, and they've just been ragged on mercilessly. But it's really refreshing to see when it all just works out so well for them. And I think it's worked out, you know, just swimmingly for MGK. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell to get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.